meeting, and anyone can trail in as they need to when they do.
Should we introduce ourselves to our guests? I guess we have
Sure.
guests. Okay, Amanda. Go ahead, Anthony.
I know.
You have no end. Okay.
I'm Anthony. I'm the chair of conservation.
Hi.
I'm George Ryan. I'm the vice chair.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm Gary Gregory, a member.
Yeah, I'm Maureen Plumley, the secretary clerk.
Hi.
Okay,
Well-
thanks for coming.
I'm meeting new people.
Yeah, that's good. Why, are you new to Old Lyme?
No,
Suzanne? Oh,
I've
you are.
been
Okay.
here since 1986.
Oh, well, that's. You're new to Old Lyme if you're an Old Lyme person.
No, I'm just new to Old Lyme, so
Okay. Okay. Accept the
All right.
minutes.
Yeah, I went over the minutes. I accept them. I vote to accept them.
Okay. Anyone else? I second it.
I second it.
Okay. Gary?
Aye,
Gary's in.
aye.
Okay. Aye.
I'm just gonna check.
Okay. Um,
I have the old minutes up. Now I can close these. Looks like kind of a skeleton agenda this week. Vote to accept the minutes from last month. Gary, we were gonna talk watershed management, but we've postponed the guest speakers for tonight.
Correct, and I'm available to bring you up to date on that whenever you want.
Okay. Or can we do that during this meeting?
Yeah, you
That's
ready?
on the agenda.
Sure, sure.
Go ahead.
From the state, Ryan O'Donnell, Kesley Wentley, Megan Loftley. And what we have to do the sampling, we have to get trained and we have to pay for our own analysis. It's roughly
Be the ones doing
$3,000.
it.
That's about roughly $2,000 to $3,000 for doing 2 rivers, 8 places, 10 times a year. The way it has to work is either on a Wednesday or Thursday morning, we have to take all the samples, take them to wherever is going to analyze them. Right now, the state has a contract in East Hartford. And they told me that maybe you can get the sewer plant to do it for you. So have to check on that. And we also, if we decide to go forward, we have to get money in the budget for next year to do this.
WPCA won't be involved. It'll be a DEP effort. And talking to WPCA, DEP does not have the equipment to do it to the extent it needs to be done, so it has to come out of the state.
The short line is it's super expensive. We don't have the resource, and it's a little over our head to get fully vested in this right now. Where we need to put.
That's
we need to
correct.
start.
It's too late for us to get involved with this now. But if we want to go forward, it's time to be finding out what we got to do and see if we can do it.
I don't think it's a bad direction. Remove sustainable CT and any incentive for points from a community and water quality standpoint. I think it's worthwhile to pursue. I
think it's worthwhile.
I take water samples, soil samples, and air samples every day for work, and I work with labs and chemical analysis. So, there may be state requirements that you have to go through their labs, but I might be able to shortcut some of that.
But they have to train people to do it.
to get the samples. It
Right.
doesn't take much.
Yeah, because I did something like that years ago, back in the 70s. I had to take a water.
Suzanne, would you mind just muting your mic?
I'm very sorry. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay.
Preparing dinner, I didn't even think.
Yeah, no worries.
Anthony,
We're
Anthony,
preparing dinner with you.
Anthony, the shortest distance between 2 points is going through DEP.
So you're saying there's not a chance?
I think we have to look into it a little
This
more.
is a long play. It's not let's do this year per se. We need a lot more research and pull some more resources
Deep would
together.
not get involved in doing it unless there was a problem, and to date there has been no problem. The reason being that all of our waterways go through a large expanse of wetlands and traps as it's supposed to, and there are no water quality issues for deep to jump up and down and get excited about.
It's interesting. Connecticut River is terrible, and it's an intertidal zone pushing back up these creeks. Also, I kind of got a different message or a different takeaway from the watershed conversation we had last month, and this seemed like water quality data is something that towns have more accessibility to performing than the way Deep's kind of roadblock and the extreme costs associated with taking their roadway on it. Did it, is it just me, or it seemed rather encouraging? I didn't think it was going to be, kind of such a shutdown.
The from my information, there are certain towns that are doing this, a volunteer water monitoring program. We just don't know enough about it yet to get into it, except we do know that somebody's got to come up with the money for this, not for this physical sampling. We would do that, and we would be trained to do that. And we are invited to the training later this month. It's a video training, so we could go farther and see how we feel about that. But you got to run those samples, have to be taken almost immediately to the point of analysis, because they start degenerating very quickly. And what the state wants to do, they want that sample in their hand either Wednesday or Thursday, because they have a little report to put out on Friday how everything is going.
So this is a monthly thing that they do, say, on a Wednesday or Thursday. They don't necessarily follow rain events or anything.
Not the people that I've been talking to, and I mentioned that. They say, no, we just do it every Wednesday or Thursday morning. We run the sample to wherever you're going to get it analyzed, which would be East Hartford would be the best price for us, unless we can get the sewer plant in New London to do it for us. Somebody would have to go talk to those people, see if they're interested in doing it.
Why would they do it for us? How did that come up?
The gentleman, Ryan O'Donnell, told me they are doing it. He's doing this. He's doing this from Canada to here. He's in charge of the water quality testing, and he's all along the way. The local water or sewer plants are doing it, or in many cases.
Okay, so we'll kind of table this a little bit, but we can still chip away. This gentleman in, what'd you say, New London, East Lyme, the sewer treatment plant, might be someone we can chat with along the way.
Well, that's the only one I know of is in New London. I don't actually know where it is either. I know Groton's where Groton's is, but one of us would have to get contact there and see if they would be, what they say about doing some volunteer work, or maybe they want paid, but it might be a better price than anything else we could get.
I thought I read somewhere about this volunteer cadre that was doing some of the work. I don't recall that there was a cost involved. I mean, are we would be considered then volunteers for the DEP, right?
Yeah, our labor is free, but you can't find anybody that'll put the chemicals up and do the actual analysis without getting money for it.
Yeah.
I called Eastern Analytical in Old Saybrook, thinking I could tell the guy, hey, you could get some good publicity here. And he said, $39 a sample. Yeah, that's it.
What about Yukon? They do like the agricultural extension where they'll do free testing and stuff. Maybe they have maybe there's a program through one of the universities or something. I don't know if that qualifies with the state, but they probably want a piece of the
No,
pie.
I think it's a great idea. One of us will have to pursue that.
Just thoughts.
Yukon Clear does a lot.
So tell me about what you talked about with Eastern Analytical. They have the chemicals or the testing stuff?
Just a laboratory. They'll analyze the sample.
Right. But they don't charge $2,000.
No, they charge $39 a pop.
Well, I think I'll take that one.
And you're doing 10 samples on 2 rivers, so 20 samples a month.
Oh.
Times 3 or 4 months.
Oh.
Get your bank account out, baby.
Forget this. So, all right. So that's part of the watershed management topic, but it's not the whole topic.
Very true.
In the minutes, there are other parts of the watershed management plan that had nothing to do with testing. I mean, the testing would be a great thing if we can do it, but we don't have that kind of funding in our budget for this commission.
Very true. Now, Kelsey is willing to come and do a presentation for us whenever we want to. We just have to make sure that she's available. We have to get a room somewhere, get all the audio video stuff that she needs for that, and then get some good advertising out ahead of time. Now, George Ryan has a few ideas on how to get the word out to the public that we're going to be.
So this would be a workshop for the public?
Absolutely. The whole point of the thing is to educate the people the importance of a watershed.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, there are ways to distribute that information to the town residents. So.
Exactly. So that's what we'd want to do. Set that up, but somebody's going to have to take that and plan it all out and run with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
If you look at the email I sent you yesterday on watershed management, it'll tell you who does what to whom. It's all in there.
Right. Well, the question is, what are we going to do for part of that project? You don't have to do the whole thing.
We got to coordinate with DEP because they're the ones that control the QAAP, and they're the ones that control the watershed management for this area. That includes lakes, rivers, streams, ad nauseum.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but that's just for if we were gonna do water quality data volunteer scientist program, but there's still other educational opportunities that we don't need to involve deep, so we can still pursue this or
if we do nothing more than coordinate with some people whose job it is to do the management aspect, and we had them provide a lecture to the town so they know who's doing what to whom, that should partially fill the square. Beyond that, how much involvement we would have is slim to none.
Well, but again, you have to decide what you want to do. And then go after it.
Well, if you look at the CT Sustainable and what requirements we have to fill, and we'll see to what extent we can fill them.
Right, well, you don't have to fill all of the check, we don't have to put check marks everywhere, you just decide which ones are doable, and they don't, the whole project, the whole action plan doesn't have to be done at one time. You just spread it out over months or even a couple of years.
Basically, our involvement as far as that goes would consist of education of the
Yeah.
public.
Well, that's a fine thing to do.
We
Well,
got
talk-
educated last month.
Yeah,
It was great. We didn't even know about the volunteer scientist program, and now we
Right.
know that it's a little out of our arm's length.
And I
So-
and I sent you the information on who's doing what to whom yesterday.
okay, so what are you doing?
I just told you I did it.
Okay, good.
All your
Then-
emails are flagged. I'll have to go look in my special folders. No, I
That's your
saw
problem,
them.
not mine.
So what's the report we want for the minutes? What is the goal, the project for this commission?
For water quality, we've tabled it
Right,
and we'll take it up later in the year.
okay,
Mhm.
For Watershed Education, we're going to have Kelsey Wentley, who is the river steward for the Connecticut River Conservancy, to give us a seminar. She's already sent us the slides for the seminar. So
okay.
we can review that, and we could say, we could ask her to add something or delete something, however we want to do it. Like I would want her to broach water quality because it's all tied together. And all we got to do is decide if we want to do that and when we want to do it, and get somebody that will plan it all out, get the publicity out there, and get the hall, and get her committed to a date.
Is it the time, she would be doing it in person, right?
Yes, that's my plan. We
Okay,
will be done with these silly masks by that time.
yeah, okay. So,
Still have to wash your hands.
yeah, cover your mouth when you sneeze. Is there something we could overlap into where we could have this as part of it? I forget what the decision is for Old Lyme's Midsummer program, you know, the festival.
That's canceled. That's canceled.
Okay, how about the parade?
Parade's on.
Yeah,
We
okay.
will have it.
So if everybody in Old Lyme goes to the parade, is there some way we do a float for the parade? Talk about water quality, or, you know, put out
Not-
information about the seminar.
I mean, that's a good idea, but not this year.
Okay. How long a seminar would it be? How long of a workshop?
I really don't know. I know we can adjust the length whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't think you'd want to lecture any more than 45 minutes. After that, people start falling asleep.
Right. And specifically, what do you want her to say? I mean, we're talking about how you run your home in a watershed area? What exactly is she going to talk about?
What watershed management is and how it affects the Old Lyme area of responsibility.
Yeah,
Ooh, sounds
I've
scary.
asked her already, and I'll ask her again to do her regular dog and pony show for us. And we will take a look at her slides and adjust it up or down, or add things to it, whatever we think we want her to cover.
Well, you've got to promote this to somebody. In other words, here's Anthony Daniels with a young family. Why would he sign into this? What would you tell him?
I care.
His kids are too young to do anything. They're not in school yet.
This is for their future.
Yeah, well, you tell them not to pour paint in the drains and
No, we have
yeah,
to teach. I have
If
to
you
tell my
read the
grandfather
email I
that.
sent you yesterday, a lot of those questions you're asking are answered.
so in
Well, why
the
don't we just forward uh, George's email to the community?
right.
I'm quite sure that the 95% of the community is not even aware of it.
Brings us back to the education component.
And the other 5% don't really give a darn.
WPCA is only concerned with well water and septic tanks.
Right.
DEP is responsible for watershed management along with the EPA.
Yeah, but what happened to the conversation about watershed areas, no salt, road signage? I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, that's just one idea that comes to mind that I remember. I don't have the list in front of me, but I mean, there's more to this topic that either meets either sustainable CT or just betters the community and our understanding of our environment that we live in here. So right
Well,
now I don't think we have answers to this except for George's email has all the answers. But outside of that, I think this conversation's still kind of going to be rolling. I don't think we need to kind of beat it tonight.
I think it has to be narrowed down. First of all, what can you do to change people's behavior? I would think that a map of Old Lyme showing the watershed areas would be significant. And
Yeah,
you
awareness
know,
of it.
and and then people are going to say, so what? So how does that affect me? Or some, educated folks would say, what can I do? What can I do to help? What can I do to improve the
Well,
watershed?
we can, provide more education or reach out for more opportunity for education on pesticide application and lawn care and surface water pathways and how that affects the watershed because it starts in the beginning. I mean, it's a Mr. Rogers episode. People just don't know and they don't see it every day and they don't think about it. The oil from your car in your driveway, if your
Right,
driveway's impervious, all these things
right.
impact.
Right. And those are all good points. So those are things that people can act on. They can act, they can do things. Don't do
Or
this,
be
do this.
conscious of,
Yeah,
it starts real simple. But I mean, what can we do for now? I mean, I don't think we have a forum to convey this right now, especially in a COVID world. It's not like we can have a booth somewhere or there's an event where we can, just pop a stand up and say, hey, grab this printout because now we're using paper in this scenario, or it's all on, the watershed maps are on the town website or something. They might be. I don't know.
I
You
don't
know.
know either. I mean, there are maps. I don't know where you'd access one, but if you wanted to call attention to the so what
Well,
of
you
the
can
water,
access the state watershed map, but it's super
yeah,
vague. It just shows, all of Lyme, East Lyme, anything that touches the river is a watershed, and they're categorized all the way up the river.
You
If you
got
guys go to the town website, go to GIS, and
There you go. You can filter it
water,
for that.
all the watersheds are broken down from the big one, the Connecticut River, right down to every little creek just about.
So the
Anything is called a
information's,
watershed.
it's all the information's available. It's just a matter of accessibility and if we wanted to help pass that information on, steward that along in our mission.
but that's good. That's good. That's a good thing.
I,
I mean,
I'm
in
an
the
ideas guy, I'm
yeah,
not signing up for for any of this stuff right now. I'm a little overcapacitated. That's why I haven't been able to thoroughly go through George's emails. But
well, and that's all a good point. So my point is just pick something that's doable. Doesn't have to be huge. The fact, that we don't, that a normal person I can't tell you where the watershed areas are in Old Lyme, and I'm surprised. I can't tell you. I don't know where they are. I know that I've been driving through other towns and they have signs up on the phone poles. You're now in a watershed area. Yeah. So what does that mean to the average person? And all these things that you listed, Anthony, about don't use pesticides. The fact that we've got Phragmites growing in Rogers Lake is horrifying. How did they get there? How things travel around the watershed.
Is it native Phragmites?
Well, they are now.
Just kidding. Uh,
They're Old Lyme
Nate-
residents.
It's nature.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Phragmites or anything like that grow in a place to take up where other plants are not doing their job, so that they squeeze out the natives like the cat o' nine tails and the flora and fauna that go with it. So the Phragmites, if you drive up Route 9 and the whole of the roadway, both sides, covered with Phragmites. So their job is to filter what gets dumped into those watershed areas. That's what those Phragmites do. They filter. And so, then you go back a step, and it's because people in general are living near watershed and dumping stuff in there.
well, Phragmites had to filter a lot less a few hundred years ago.
Right. Sure, you had fewer houses and they didn't all have that many
Well, I
cars.
think we're straying a little bit or stretching this. I mean, because I don't think we're going to reach closure, or an action item on this right now. I think we're right. Does anyone
Okay.
disagree? I mean,
I'm looking for you guys, all of us, to decide if you want me to go ahead with Kelsey and tell her that we plan to have her here for a seminar this summer.
There's George. Hi,
all right, hey
George.
George.
Howdy.
I think I like Kelsey when I think she provides a lot to us. I felt like we got a quick education last week. I mean, in terms of, or last month, I don't see where we can, how I think we have logistical issues with, community outreach right now, and unless we just, have a Zoom thing and anyone can sign in, but I don't think that's gonna be limited anyway. So, I mean, there's still a lot more for us to learn. I don't know that, and I know she's been, super helpful and has offered her time, but I don't want to waste her time if we don't have, a direction yet, or the impetus to really move on anything. We know where we're going, but we might not be like to have her back next month. I mean, are we going to end with any decisions tonight where we're going?
Anthony, it's Amanda Blair. Could I just interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I just wanted to tell you all, the Open Space Plan 2020 that we did has a lot of these maps on watershed and information that you're asking in this presentation. They're in our report, which is available in the town hall, and I think there's a link to it on our webpage. Well,
that's excellent information, and I mean, there's like I was pointing to, this is a lot of this is available, and as Amanda pointed out, this is something that other groups have already done a lot of the legwork and done a lot of this information. I'll be the first to admit I'm not searching through the town website for documents, but if I was, specifically wanted a watershed map, I mean, I would start there, and GIS map, and I'd maybe come across open space conservation, these links, and I mean, everything points that direction. So I mean, some of these items are already there, and just, if you're looking for it, you'll find it.
Okay, so for Gary and for George, that's a good place to start. See what's available. Some of these things do not require the action to make a map, for example, but to refer people to it. And that's okay. That's shared information.
That is something we could easily do at the presentation.
Okay.
So how do we do this presentation? Do we just have it amongst conservation? I mean, is this an open to the town thing that we, how do we advertise it, and actually, get a turnout post
I would
town
make it
hall?
open to, I would make it open to the town. You gotta have a location that'll hold a bunch of people in case somebody decides to come.
Well, here's a suggestion. One thing that's really taking hold in the town is the pollinator effort. The pollinator gardens, there's that action afoot to do a food share garden at the senior center. So how does how does all of that tie together with a watershed? Watering, watering a garden, watering, I don't know what, but there's got to be some connection because they're active and they're doing meetings and bringing people together. So possibly there's a way to introduce the watershed information into what the pollinator group is doing. And they're a separate group. They're part of Sustainable Connecticut, but they are a separate group doing all of this. And if you look inside, for example, the most recent mailings from the senior center, well, Anthony, probably not you, but everybody else on the commission would receive the senior center newsletter, and right inside the front cover is a full page ad and a description of the pollinator efforts that's taking place in Old Lyme. So if it was up to me, I would piggyback on what somebody's already got the momentum for. They're doing events, they're that type of thing captivates families and kids. Butterflies, bumblebees. So what's the connection between watershed understanding, awareness, pure water, or drinking your water, and keeping pollinators around in the area?
Well, is that Kelsey's expertise? Are we spreading out here from? I mean, are we is that what she's going to come in and discuss the connection between that, or we're talking about watershed education?
Well, just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, and I'm for that. We're still kind of. I don't want to leave the Kelsey. Are we gonna have her come and do this presentation or not? That's kind of where we're trying to thumbs up or thumbs down, because Gary has been coordinating with her.
It's just a way that I see a group has captivated people in Old Lyme. Another group that's working hard and has good outreach is the Roger Troy Peterson Audubon Center. They've got kids coming to summer camp. Maybe there's a place where we could distribute to the kids. There's no reason that this has to be, or any part of this has to be unique or a lot of work. Just see what's going on in town and partner. That's how I would do it. Because it seems like, everybody in this meeting is their head down and dragging their feet through this.
No, I think you're talking overall, like, more sustainable CT, right?
Well, the watershed issue was something that this commission agreed to tackle. What we don't know is to do what? What's the outcome of it? How do you get somebody to show up for an educational thing? Use what's already out there. If you're looking at sustainability, it's all about collaboration. It's not about inventing things.
I don't think there's anything out there about watershed.
Right, that's what I mean. So how can you introduce something, even if it's a handout, to go with one of the other, like the Roger Troy Peterson summer camp? What are they doing? Birds have to know about watershed. They're looking for water.
Well, I think, if we had Kelsey come in, I think we can, we should organize and try to come up with a presentation forum for that, either virtual. It sounds like, kind of in-person event would be a little bit off limits based on what the town is, planning on events. And we don't have to plan it for June. We could set it up in July or something, and we could, we might be able to find something to momentum off of the town's doing this. Oh, and also, hey, there's this, online meeting, forum, educational program on watersheds, pass it around the other commissions and boards, and people can, sign in and listen. And
Well,
I
and,
think it's,
and I'll throw out a third option of something that happens during the summers is all of the associations, the homeowner associations in town have meetings. So Rogers Lake and the Shoreline Group, the other side of Rogers Lake, they have meetings. So, overlapping with that, adding yourself onto the agenda. I always make a report to Rogers Lake. Doesn't have to be me.
Look, I'm willing to volunteer to get Kelsey here. We need somebody else to volunteer to get us the room, and somebody else to volunteer to get us the publicity.
right. I don't think we're gonna I mean, what room? We're not gonna do this at the town hall, or can we do it in the great room? How many people can we put in there? 12, 15, 20? I don't know. I'm asking. If it's like 8 to 10 person capacity, that's one commission.
With the separation, you can probably get 30 some in there.
Okay, so, I say we hold on this because I don't have the commitment right now to, I mean, I can make some phone calls, talk to Michelle and see what we can do at the town, publicity wise. We can post it on town website. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to, post at the town hall, but I mean, put some signage at Big Y or something. Dunkin' Donuts.
And there are other, like the homeowner associations have rooms. The one on Hartford Avenue is available. Rogers Lake West Shores has a room. They're all available. But, okay, whatever.
Well, I mean, do you want to reach out and lock in? Okay, so
I can't.
whatever.
Thank you. I cannot.
So Gary, I say we hold on to this and we move from this for now. I don't want to waste her time, and she's helpful. I want to bring her in when we can optimize, what we're gonna get, attendance wise, and I don't think we have the organization right now. I don't.
I agree with you. Maybe by our next meeting, we'll know if we can fill a room.
Okay. Maureen, we got you on here twice with recycling.
Twice?
Current actions and outreach and education.
Oh. Well, I'll tell you about recycling. What I chose to do is to reboost the whole idea of educating people about proper recycling, what to do and what not to do. 2 years ago, there was a committee, especially they helped to hire the vendor. I plan to contact the vendor and find out what is the path that recycling goods take so that I have some logic about why you put certain things into recycling. The obvious question is, what do I do with the pizza box? Well, the pizza box you tear in half. The greasy part goes in the garbage. The clean part goes in recycling. I see all kinds of junk going into people's green bins. People think it's just another garbage can. Gary, what are you doing? You want points? You want a prize? You throwing out your old phone books? So, to that end, I tackled some specific things later in the summer. In June, or July, I'm going to set up an exhibit in the library. We've agreed to that. What is and what is not recyclable. I'm going to send out monthly, maybe less than monthly, just statements on the website for the town is a sidebar about news about the town, news and announcements, and it's going to go in there. Just do this, don't do this. The big thing is plastic film. So do you put that in recycling? Here's the test. Put that in recycling or throw it in the garbage.
I throw it in the garbage.
That's the wrong answer. You don't put it in either one. Plastic film, like shopping bags, or not tarps, but you know.
Saran wrap, the plastic that like packaging comes in.
Yeah, packaging. You can put in bubble wrap as long as you puncture all the holes. They have to be flat, not puffed up with air. That's the fun part, popping all that stuff. But anyway, do you know what to do with all of that? It goes to the big Y, into the big, there's a bin right inside the place where you recycle your cans and bottles.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody
I know where
knows.
that is.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
a big thing. Put
That's
your
what I'm gonna
plastic-
do with that now.
Yes. For example, I have a neighbor who's also a painter, and what do you suppose they spread around when they're painting in a room? Plastic sheets, plastic sheeting, and then they take and they throw it in some garbage can somewhere. I'm going to ask him if he would either give it to me and I'll do it, or put them in those bins. Those
Coated with
schools-
paint.
Well, they're not sloppy paint.
What do they do with it? Incinerate it?
They they just put it in the garbage.
Why can't I put it?
No. So the answer to your question about what do they do with the plastic wrap, it goes into making Trex deck lumber. If you want to know what that looks like, you come look at mine. It's a combination of sawdust and plastic film that gets blended in and stirred up.
Indiscriminately, all of that plastic waste.
No. It gets sorted twice. The schools did a whole campaign on it this year. Hardly anybody knew about it except the school community. And some of our schools won prizes for what they collected in plastic wrap in partnership with Big Y.
And nobody in town knew about it. That's amazing.
Right. So anyway, that's going to be the topic for our events magazine submission, is promoting the whole plastic wrap thing. What do you do with it? And the fact that our own schools won prizes. The high school is getting, as a prize, they're getting a bench made with Trex lumber. Did you know that? No, nobody knew it. But anyway, I'm going to help them boost their PR as part of the whole recycling. For example, people are what they're putting in the green bins are their recyclables in plastic bags. Bad. No good. You cannot put the plastic bags into recycling, because they get wrapped around this equipment that is processing the recycling, not the plastic film stuff, but the recycling, like cans and bottles. Picture this. If you were going to return your cans and bottles and put them into that machine in the Big Y, the whole plastic bag thing would, of course, mess up the machine. So that's what they're doing, is it all has to be taken out and thrown out from recycling. So anyway, that's the long story of what I plan to do, is to bring attention to plastic film, what to do with it as part of recycling.
Well, I'll spread the word.
Yep, Big Y. Right now, with the schools coming to the end of the year, there's no way for you to access the bins that they have to do that themselves. So there's a bin in Town Hall, in the foyer, and the other one is Big Y.
Well, I guess if you don't know what to do with it, call Maureen.
Here I am. People
Or-
do call me.
Or read George's email again.
Right. People do call me, by the way, or they'll run me down in a big way and say, hey, I have a question for you. What do I do with my pizza box? But people are paying attention. And part of the reason that they come to me is because I pimp myself out there and I do things like I show up for the annual meeting of Rogers Lake West Shore and I own a piece of that agenda. I am called upon to give a report. I've been to Hartford Avenue. I've made presentations there. So I tell people and I search them out and I say, I'd like to come and talk to you. And they say, okay.
All right, well, that's
Anyway,
great.
my focus is
Thank you.
recycling, the plastic film part of recycling, and overlapping. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm overlapping with what the schools are working on because they will come back in September and continue this project. So I don't have to invent the whole plastic film thing. I can just partner with them. So that's what I'm emphasizing with the watershed thing. Partner. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Thanks.
George James, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hit *6 on your phone.
Star six. Okay, does that?
That didn't make it any better.
Does that help?
You have a slight echo, but otherwise, actually, I'm hearing quite an echo throughout. Is everyone else getting that?
No, the echo was everywhere.
Anybody on a telephone hit *6.
Star six. All right. Star
six. Okay, *6. Does that help?
Yeah, that's good.
Good.
That did it.
Also, if you're not talking and you have the ability to, if you mute your line, it helps with the feedback. We're having some issues. Sounds good now. George James, the floor is yours.
Well, the report that I put together for suggestions for the Old Lyme Open Space Plan for 2020 is ready. It has been massaged by a couple of professionals, and I think it's ready to pass along to the commission if they'll accept these suggestions. So that's where it sits right now.
We wanted to have a vote on this last week, and you were on the call, but no one could hear you, and we found out later on that was the case, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I hope you didn't think I beat you up too bad. I'm not
No,
opposed.
no,
I'm not opposed to.
I thought that was pretty easy compared to what we had in the past.
It's nothing I wouldn't have said if I knew you were there. Well, I think we have an opportunity. We have Gary and Amanda here from Open Space. I think there's nothing in the letter and the research that hasn't been a conversation that's been happening. But since we talked last week, I did see some update on some grant money for beaver control, perhaps, and maybe now is the time to have a conversation about that. We have Amanda here that could fill us in with a little more detail. Is that okay with everyone?
Okay.
Amanda, I'm just calling you on the spot. I don't know if you're prepared for that, but I did see an email.
I thank you. Thank you, Anthony, and I look forward to updating you on our project. I do want to mention that our open space plan was adopted and filed last October. It's in final print and is available online and hard copies in the town hall. So George, thank you for your work, but we've already completed and filed that report. as for the Ames open space, I'll just update you briefly. We received 2 grants, a Rockfall grant and a Hartford Audubon grant of, I think, $2,900. We have slightly cleared, trimmed up some trees. We placed 2 hand-hewn benches made by Jim Milburn, our land steward, and put them on there. We have put cameras there, and we're monitoring the beaver activity. We had a drone flight done, which shows us the whole area overlaid with GIS so we can see property lines. And we're putting that together, and that will be on our website along with the pictures. And we're currently working on signage. And then when we're finished with that, we'll update our trail map so that it shows where our beaver and birds wildlife observation area is on a trail map. So it's on the blue perimeter trail. So if you have an opportunity to walk that, we officially opened that on Earth Day this past month. And that's about all I have on that. If anyone has any questions or comments.
Amanda, the question that we would have is, when do we expect, or do we expect to put in beaver deceivers, and if so, when? And as a side to go along with that, George and I were over there the other day, and it's totally flooded on both sides of Whippoorwill now.
Right. We've been over there monitoring it, and I had Evan and I had conversations with Tim Griswold, because you need to realize that the major beaver dam is in the culvert under the Whippoorwill Road, and that is on town property, not on open space property. So we have, as I said, talked with Tim, and he's agreed to have, I'm going to be contacting Mike Callahan, beaver deceiver, who came down 3 or 4 years ago and proposed a beaver deceiver for that area. Bonnie was the select woman at that point, and instead Deep was in there, and then other people were in there breaking down the beaver dams. Well, fast forward 3 years, and you can see that doesn't work. So we will be having Mike Callahan or some other person come in, and the town will pay for that. When that beaver deceiver is in, I would think it'd be in the next couple of months, then we can see the effect it has on the open space. But at this point, we are not affecting private property, and rather than do multiple beaver deceivers, it would be advantageous to do the one that is blocking the majority of the water on town property, let that work, and then reanalyze the situation.
Quick question just comes to mind. I'm trying to picture this. If it's flooded on both sides of Whippoorwill and there's a dam between, how would that let the water, where would the water go? It seems to be equilibrium on one side to the road to the other, no?
Well, what the Ames property is basically, where that culvert is, and the Ames property is basically the headwaters of the Black Hole River. And there are numerous beaver dams on the other side of 95 going. So if that water can go through,
it can get through 95.
Alleviate. Well, there's several culverts on 95, first of all. The one, I was there when the state DOT came out and unplugged the one on Whippoorwill. So I've been there for about every incident on this beaver dam. And they said it's the town's responsibility. There are other culverts on 95. If those are blocked with beaver dams, that's a state of Connecticut issue. You have to undo one at a time. The property on the opposite side is Pfeiffer, and he has a lot of wetlands, and there's been a lot of rain. Now, whether that is caused by the beaver dam or some other thing, that's on private property. So again, we're starting with the first one and working our way through to see what happens. And it's going to be trial and error for a while. But at this point, it hasn't affected private property, and we're monitoring it. But we also, the Open Space Commission adopted a policy that as long as the beaver dams are not affecting private property, we will not break them. We will put in a beaver deceiver as necessary, but we are letting nature be. And that's why we developed, with the grant money, this beaver and birds wildlife observation area.
Okay.
Quick,
So I
Amanda,
think, yes.
it's a quick one, Amanda. You know, when I voted for that with the open space to let the beavers be, right? So I would have to recuse myself for any voting that we do here on that. But my question would be, when you did the aerials, did you have a chance to look at what would happen if that dam under Whippoorwill got 2, 3, 4, 5 feet higher?
Well, at some point, but Gary, first of all, the Ames Open Space is under Open Space Commission. We protect and preserve and monitor. Where the beaver dam on Whippoorwill is the town. So you have to distinguish between the two. We can't tell the town what to do. So Tim has agreed, we'll get that. And until that's done, and Mike Callahan and comes down, designs it, and it's put into effect, nobody knows what's going to happen. So I think we have to wait and see. I would think when the beaver dams were broken 3 or 4 years ago, the water went down several feet. And now that they're blocked, and this is the only way that we will be able to keep them unblocked is by putting the beaver deceiver. And he had said when he was down previously that this was doable. So unless he leads us to believe this time when he comes down that it's not, I would think in the next couple of months this would be resolved. Then we'll see what the water level is going north up to Jericho. But it doesn't make any sense to put a beaver deceiver in somewhere else if the water goes away by just putting one in. And then if there are beaver ponds on private property down the Black Hole on the other side of 95, then that needs to be addressed. But that's not open space, and that property is not the town of Old Lyme. So we are starting with the culvert, which has been an issue for several years. And we'll start there and work our way north.
Well, I appreciate
Well,
that.
we will have the deceiver in, let's say, probably by July the 4th. My real question was the property owners on Whippoorwill.
Well, Gary, I'm not projecting when this is being, and I think it gives people a date that could not be realistic. So let's not put any dates on this. Okay, that's the first thing. When Mike Callahan comes down and feels that he can remediate this, then we have to, it has to be presented to the Board of Selectmen for their approval, and then it'll be done. Funds need to be expended. So I'm not putting a time frame on that. We work as quickly as we can, but it's in the hands of many. So please don't tie our hands with a date.
All right. My question is, when you did the aerial, do you know what happens to that private property on Whippoorwill if that water level goes up a foot, 2, 3, 4 feet?
We're monitoring it, yes. And at this point, it's all I can really say is we're monitoring it. The property line is the center line of the Black Hall River. Unless you want to get a boat out there for the surveyor to do, it's difficult to tell. So we're looking at the structures, and we're waiting to see how the beaver deceiver in the culvert works, because that will release a lot of that water. I mean, it's pure speculation at this point to ask us to see what happens upriver when we haven't even corrected downriver. I just don't want to speculate. But we will certainly keep you informed. We'll be putting the drone presentation on the website, and we have pictures and everything that we'll be passing out. And it's actually quite interesting. I've gone over this several times, and I haven't seen a beaver, I have to admit, although I know they're active, but the bird life is incredible over there. It's just beautiful. And there's these beautiful benches that you can sit and observe. Just, you know, it's very pleasant.
Can I say something?
Please, is this Suzanne?
Yeah, I'm gonna about this Ames property, and I just want to confirm what Amanda said. The bird life and the frog life and the salamander life is just amazing. Every day I look out the windows and it's phenomenal. So I just love that beaver pond. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
I appreciate your testimonial. Okay, so, part of this discussion is, George put together a real well-rounded, informative paper on the impacts that beavers have had on the environment around here, among some other environmental topics. In the name of FOIA, this is, an open conversation because, people can join in. So we have, in this case, open space. We have a crossover from Gary anyway, so he would essentially be recused from any voting conversation we have in conservation regarding this. The discussion is we want to provide our recommendations to open space. My personal position is that the information is good and valuable, and I think it's relevant. At this point in time now, I know Amanda haven't provided that information, that this plan was approved in October, and at what point, I mean, if we got this to you last week, not that you haven't, done your own research and been in, up to your elbows in this topic, so I'm not questioning where you stand on this, but we on conservation, feel the obligation to be able to provide or be a soundboard on environmental decisions, and so we wanted to pass our recommendations from George on to the Open Space Commission. My feeling is, when it comes to the beavers, as Amanda stated, you start working one dam at a time and figuring out where the linchpin is, and you have a convergence of ownerships. You have open space, you have private property, and you have town property, you have state property. So, and all of them are potentially a source of flooding through beaver dams. So I don't think that open space is the end point of our recommendations. I think it's a town-wide recommendation that we need to provide. If we're as conservation, we're providing a recommendation, period. I don't think it's targeting one commission or board or group, because this seems like a more complicated issue. And until you get down there in a wetsuit and start crawling around through the wetlands and figuring out which beavers live where, and then surveying that to see whose property they're actually on, who's responsible. And open space has adopted their policy on the beavers. It's clear if it's not a dam impacting the open space property, that's
Or
not,
private property.
or private property, then that's not something they're interested in touching. Our recommendations is hot air. If the plan's been written, and I see there's potentially action, won't put a date on it, but the future holds potential beaver deceivers and disassembling at least one dam. And I think that underneath the state and the town roads is something that those are different groups that are going to need to get involved in order to actually clear this up. So in the name of education or keeping the conversation rolling, I mean, I support the information that and the letter that George wrote up, and I'm okay with letting that fly, as a recommendation coming from Conservation Commission. Not that there's a but in there,
No,
but
we haven't
doesn't.
seen this letter.
No, and this isn't that you're just privy to our meeting at this point.
Okay.
This was a conversation amongst conservation whether we were going to adopt this letter as a whole. And I know we've had this conversation before. I remember you and Evan came on a couple months ago when we started having discussions about the beavers and the properties out there and the impacts they're having. And that's kind of when
How's it going?
over time, not just then, prior to that, George James had been kind of adopting and putting this document together and refining it, and the Conservation Commission hadn't really fully stood behind it in terms of whether or not we're going to send this as a recommendation. My position was the conversation should be open, and instead of sending a letter, we should, reach out to open space. And you'll see in the agenda, or the minutes for last week rather, that Tom and I were going to reach out to open space, and we were going to try to, get some clarity on what was going, what the plans were moving forward, if any. And then since then, I saw emails regarding state grants, and I saw conversation about, beaver control, or at least looking into it. And so, I still look at George's document, which Amanda, you guys on Open Space haven't seen yet. And I support passing that along, but my point is, what difference is it going to make? You guys are firm, we can pass on recommendations. You sound pretty firm in your research and your positions on this. You've obviously done a lot of legwork for this, to look into where the issues lie and what your reach involves. So, and
Well,
I know.
I think if you, and Suzanne's here, thank you, from the Old Lyme Land Trust. I think the last several years that Old Lyme has had some issues with beavers, and the land trust had it, and it was written up in letters to the editor and things like that. So we all respect private property. And because the Open Space Commission is in charge of protecting, preserving, and maintaining the open space in Old Lyme, we wanted to actively monitor the situation. And that's why when we brought it to Tim's attention that it was on town land, but we would be glad to get the beaver deceiver person down, and we would be glad to monitor it, then that's why we are working together with them. Yes, we do have a position that we have taken and adopted for the open space to protect and preserve beaver dams on nature. It's nature. It's not mankind. So
Yeah, I
we
don't
are,
disagree
as
with
long
that.
as
I
it
think
does,
there's places for nature, and then there's places where we have clearly established this is for mankind, and we give nature a little bit of their corner to play in. And I'm all in favor of that. I'm not disagreeing with or debating your
we'd
position.
like a little bigger
Um,
corner, I think, Anthony.
yeah, always, always. I know. And I think that's where I think we as a whole agree on that. I think George agrees on that. And I think where the disconnect is for some of the tension, I use that term lightly. If there is tension it seems like the beaver conversation's a hot topic. Um, is what is the natural progression, what it was or what it's becoming now, and so.
Right,
It's a deeper conversation than we have time for tonight. So I,
right.
I, I don't
I
know. I'm
would
in
say
favor,
that,
George, of passing on your letter to boards, commissions. I don't think it's directed at open space
it's open
necessarily,
space.
specifically. Um, do you agree or disagree? I know you've been quiet. I know you've been very firm and you've provided a lot, and I know you're a little bit out of gas on this topic because your position is where it is. But is it? Go ahead.
Well, again, I have had a very close interest in this particular parcel, and because I was the one who got it for the town, and it was understood that we would have and restore the old route through the property, and that meant removing the beavers because they were flooding the main access road and so forth. And that goes back to 2005, when we had a beaver flooding that area. And we found that that was against what we had in mind for the property as open space and access to it. So we called the state of Connecticut. They sent down the paperwork. We filled it out. We hired a trapper. The next 2 or 3 days, he got the beavers out of there, and we restored that property to its normal performance as a very valuable open space parcel. What we have now is we have flooded an entire area of 3 different valleys. We have destroyed one valley of its trees because of the beaver flooding. We have all the other sections of the parcel are under deep water, and we're killing probably 3,000 to 4,000 trees. Those trees, even with their own report, indicates that a full-grown tree at 40 feet, 40 years of age, would take out tons of carbon dioxide, which is very valuable for us, the town of Old Lyme, because of the highway's proximity with its gases, and also the poisons that come to us in the air. We have bad air in Connecticut, and that those poisons come from the west to the east, right over that particular parcel. So a matter of health is involved. You wait this summer, we're going to have muck holes that are going to have full of mosquitoes. And we have a beaver pond next to Colton Carey that is covered with green algae, suggesting it's the only area in that whole valley that has any algae. and it was there all winter long. So you have I think, a public debate here, whether these destructive elements are balanced against the delight of having a couple of beavers. Now, as I point out in my letter and my anytime you want to talk to me about it, I'll point out that I favor beavers in areas like the Lay property. We have a beaver pond there that came in fairly recently and it's flooded about 10, 12 acres. It has, I think now the latest tally is 9 nests of great blue herons, which is a delight for bird watchers and the like. So my whole position, if you want to call it that, is that in those cases where there are not flooding of private property, our neighbors, their backyards and so forth, that's ideal. And we're certainly in favor of that kind of beaver activity. But in the particular parcel we're talking about now, it's a disaster. And to me, to have the open space gang promoting this destruction of the whole 3 valleys of trees is just disgusting. So I've taken that's my personal view. And I have taken that, my personal view out as best I can. I've had I have both my daughters are professionals in the field of open space, and I've had them go over the letter and revise it and calm it down a little. And I would like to pass it along from the Conservation Commission as suggestions to the open space plan. This is done not in anger or annoyance or anything. It's just that I think that the open space gang in this particular case are wrong and should be, we as a Conservation Commission should try to point out that.
So I think a big takeaway for me, George, is the statement you made about it being a debate. And there are sides to this, and I don't discredit or take any value away from your side. I understand where you're coming from. I see open space as having, formulated their informed decision and their action plan on it. I don't think there's any detriment to sharing this information, your letter with them written as it is, as a new viewpoint. I wanted to make sure that, and I think you have done a great job removing the emotion from it and sticking to the facts objectively. I think some of the carbon sink effect, it's questionable science to pin it all to beavers. And I know the flooding and the decimation of the trees is a major thing, but there's regeneration also in other places that are offsetting. So
Anthony,
I don't.
could I have a few minutes for a rebuttal?
Yeah, 1 second, Amanda. I just don't want.
Okay.
I don't want this to become a debate piece that
No,
we're debating with open space back and forth. As
No, I
recommendations or
think we're
suggestions.
exchanging ideas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, an exchange of ideas. And I think that's a valuable way to look at it. And I just don't want
Mhm.
to create sides or teams on this. And I don't want to, I want to make sure that conservation isn't approaching it from that perspective. Because I know you
Right.
guys, Amanda, you guys on open space have done a lot of work, and I'm not discrediting George's research and his efforts to put this together.
Well, there's
So
always
I think
room for
that should, I think that in that vein that this letter should fly. I just don't want it to officially be a position of conservation that we expect these recommendations to be adhered to. They're talking points and conversation that we can keep open down the road or pitch back and forth with ideas exchanged. So go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, I think it's interesting that on your agenda tonight was watershed management, because what this water on our Ames open space is a major aquifer for cleaning the pollutants out of the water as it goes into the Black Hole River and into Long Island Sound. So I think you need to weigh that against the loss of a few trees.
Well,
you need
it's
to
full of
realize
urine and fecal matter from beavers, and it's so I mean
no, it cleans. It's an aquifer. Any waterway has sediment, human contributions, things like that, but the waterway cleans that. So, and I want to point out that they trapped the beaver, but the beaver came back, so it's not a very effective policy. And we decided, the Open Space Commission decided to close that trail on Whippoorwill because there is no parking. We lost that parking lot, so there is no access to that trail. So I understand that George has a personal interest in the Ames, and I applaud him for acquiring that open space parcel. My thought is, rather than draft a letter to us, because it will not go into the open space plan, that has been completed, and work up some animosity among the two organizations, maybe a better thought is to table it for a few months and let's see what happens with the beaver deceiver.
Can I
Because
say
it
something
seems to me-
also?
Please.
Yeah,
I control that. Please.
okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, so I'm a long-term wildlife rehabilitator and, and a master wildlife conservationist. And that green algae is a result of all the chemicals that people are putting on their lawns. And the beaver pond allows those things to settle into the sediment and not go out into the sound.
No,
It's
one's
really-
yours.
It's really, the beaver do an amazing thing for wildlife, for the planet in general. So that's my last comment,
No, I
sorry.
appreciate that. And we're not saying and George, his position behind that is not anti-beavers. We're not opposed to beavers. That's not beavers maintain an important environmental role in ecosystems, and we get that. The conversation, I guess, is more about beaver management and where it's taking away property and where it's impacting other properties and where we have beavers and where we maybe have too many beavers and beavers are doing too well. I think that's the conversation. And there is a tipping point and there's a happy compromise. And that's where it becomes a debate. But I I don't have a problem with George James with sharing his information with other commissions and boards and sending it to them as suggestions, take it or leave it. I also agree with Amanda that if there are some action items that are being addressed potentially in the next couple months, beaver deceivers, that sending this letter is not going to change, not going to create more action or help the situation in any way for the beavers or for the people or for one commission or the other. So I'm in favor, George, on a commission level, if we want to vote on approving, passing that your letter around as merely a guidance, from conservation, and Amanda, take it or leave it. There are probably things you've already thought of or haven't, or say, I don't agree with that, and that's fine too. Um, there is action I see that's going to happen, and I think that that's a compromise for a starting point for sure. And that's what I read into from the email regarding the grant money for a beaver deceiver from the state. And I think, we have other people to talk to. If that uh, this next action for it's a beaver deceiver that's potentially being installed, Amanda, or removal of a dam.
That's right. No, there's never removal of a dam.
Okay.
The town of Old Line.
The town or
has
state will remove them from under a culvert, under a roadway.
Now, Anthony, make sure you get the right entity here, because there's several culverts. The town of Old Line has asked the Open Space Commission to bring down Mike Callahan, the beaver deceivers, to devise a plan for a beaver deceiver in the Whippoorwill culvert that the Open Space Commission will monitor.
Right. That's the town
that's the
is
first one.
the Open Space Commission is bridging this relationship between the beaver deceiver guy and the town to come handle it. This is a town issue, the beaver deceiver beneath the town road.
Right. It's not a dam on open space. It's on town land.
Right.
I just want to make that clear. And then when that is done, and if we see the effects of that, then we'll go up and review the other beaver dams and look at private property and see how it's adjusted at that point. But we have to start with the first step, and then we'll follow. Thank you.
You got it. Appreciate it.
You have one more step that has to be taken, and that is the culvert under I-95 is now plugged up. And as you may have remembered, when it was done about 10 years ago, they had to bring down the UDT people and blast the dynamite, actually, the beaver dam that was creating that blockage.
So that's not open space. That's not the town. That's not conservation, right?
Not at all. It has to do with the basic issue of flooding these areas that they are endangering.
There are certainly areas that can be flooded. That's fine. There's, I think there's going to be an issue ultimately along the sides of Whippoorwill and 95. That culvert's completely
There's going to be plenty more
plugged up. I mean, it's going to
around town.
Right. So, I mean, beaver management is an ongoing thing, and it's not go out there and blow up the dams. And I think that's where conservation, that's where I'm coming from. And this isn't an official position because.
Let's start with the first one. And then if we have to contact the state of Connecticut, and that's under the Department of Transportation. That's not under D. So, but let's start with the first one. We're trying to work on it, but we got to unplug the first one. When you pull the plug out of the bathtub, you see what happens, and then you go, okay, where's the next one? And then you work your way up. And we cannot dictate state of Connecticut policy, so we won't even attempt to do that one. We'll tell them what we're doing and then see. But we're attempting to work on this, which in a way that works with our policy, and the town has asked us to handle it and accepts what we've proposed. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay, well, I think we get the idea of this. I think we've talked this through pretty well. The conversation now for us on conservation is,
it's the letter. So.
George,
and
we have to share your letter.
Keep you posted. Yeah, we'll keep you posted on the dates and everything. And
please do. Yeah, that'd be great.
We will.
Anything's happening. Is that stuff that won't be necessarily advertised, but you can pass around an email for that?
Well,
it's not going to be on the town website that this activity is happening, right?
No, because I don't want to entertain more questions, please. But Gary Gregory's on our commission, and he can do an update for you. He attends our meetings.
Very well.
So.
Just can't vote with us anymore.
Well, he represents conservation. He brings us, what
he
you
helps
all
the
say.
town.
So
he's a steward of the community.
Right. So it gives them an opportunity to tell you what we're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So we'll keep you in the loop. Don't worry.
So George, I think it's okay that we pass the letter around, but like I was saying before, I don't want an expectation that, their demands or something, or recommendations, suggestions, or guidance. Some of them may be past tense at this point relative to the action plan that's been approved. And I mean, what are you on board with that? Are you okay with this?
Well, you got to realize that our obligation as a commission is to look at the broader picture of the environmental impact that these beavers are having on that particular parcel.
I agree with you. It's an ecological
There
assessment, but it's not full circle.
This one that is damaging. And to think that these don't recognize the damage that's being done is beyond me. I just can't imagine ignoring what is the destructive nature of the situation right now. And it's going to get worse as we get to summer and the mosquitoes use all these areas as breeding grounds.
But why is this just happening now? Why?
Triple E is a deadly insect, and it could very well be that could be the start of it right there in the Ames parcel. And one last thing is, if I may, and that is I had a chat with the gentleman on Black Hole Pond, who now, thanks to the beavers and their impact on his property, he now has a heart pacemaker, and is quite.
I'm sorry. He has a pacemaker because of the beavers.
Yeah, because of the what happened was the flooding of the foundation of his house created enough what do you call it, fungus in his house, so they became deathly ill, and as a result now he has a pacemaker, and the property is underwater substantially more than it has ever been before. Now that may not be all direct with the beavers, but it started out that way. So these, when you ignore these kind of activities, the results of beaver activity, when you just ignore those, it seems to me that that's a great mistake and an injustice to the townspeople.
Okay. Well, that remove the emotion, some of that I take a lot of from your research and what you wrote as that being an ecological assessment, which
well, you got to realize I took 90% of all this, my personal frustration.
I know
I do
know that, and that's why I agree. That's why I support the information you've put in that letter. I think it covers a lot of topics.
It's been passed over by two professionals.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It includes carbon sequestration right now. Thank you. But
you get a gold medal.
But I'm just there are other factors that are benefited from it. So it's not a full-on negative impact. So that's where I think some of my hesitancy was in passing this off as if beavers are bad and we need to call them all because of these specific reasons. But then there's a Venn diagram where, the other side has positives and somewhere there's a middle ground. And that's how I tend to think of this.
I kind of think the middle ground is give us a few months, get the
Yeah,
beaver
okay.
deceiver in, and see what happens.
Yeah, we are. We're not, I mean, what are we doing? We're not doing anything to stop you from doing that. Passing
No,
off
you're not.
George's information, I think is just shit. I think it's, this is information and research that we've done to compile into the record, more information, and we can pull from it and scratch some of it. I mean, your plan has been written. Your plan is in action. It was approved almost a year ago. So our impact is at this point is little, but to provide, I don't want to neglect our obligation and our duty to look at things and to assess them as a body. So that's why
No.
George, I support passing your letter along.
I think you have to do your due diligence just like we do in every other commission. The only
Absolutely.
thing, my only comment is that send your letter. We'll read it. We'll look at it. I just, for the sake of the town of Old Lyme, I hate seeing the town mentioned in newspapers and articles in a negative point of view. And so that's my concern, is that it creates more sides than solving or projecting solutions to the problem. So that's my only concern, because, people comment to us. We educate people. We do all this. We take a lot of things under advisement. We have changed our policies too. We're ever forming. But I just don't want to create an issue in the town. That's my concern. I think we're all doing great jobs with your recycling, sustainable Connecticut, the pollinator gardens, all that you do. And we always want to show ourselves in a positive light, and we're not, against criticism. We may not like it, but we all take it. But I just hate to stir the pot. That's my only concern.
I agree with that, man, and that was part of why I dragged feet on saying, well, George, we had some technical issues in getting him speaking in the meeting last week. He could hear us, but he couldn't speak. But we were going over this point, and off the record, we're on the record, of course, but a letter comes. If we send a letter to you guys, how do you perceive that? You take this as, thumb your nose up at it, or I mean, do you open it objectively and say, oh, that's cute, that's good, I like these points, whatever, okay, that's whatever. We'll food for thought. Or is it, because my position was, we've sent a few letters in town, and it immediately draws a line, and people are like, why are you sending me this letter? And that's why I want to have this conversation between these two commissions, so that we're not creating sides. And I think a letter is very impersonal.
I think we get a lot of emails, a number of letters, offers to support, offers, to a number of things. And usually Greg Futoma and I will review them. We'll bring them up at our meetings. Like, we've had a lot of issues lately with dogs, and they want to know our dog policy. So we inform the people. If there's coyotes, we put up signs. People tell us this and that. We make them aware of policies. This will not be the first letter, as you all know, we've received from George James on the beavers. And he usually CCs Tim and a few other commissions. And then we get feedback that's not, that questions what we're doing. So then we point out our policies. That's why I'm hoping, I don't mind the letter, we bring it up at the meeting, but I just think rather than create differences, I'm just trying to find a path to maybe appease most of us. And I think by saying to the town, look, you had 3 years, you keep blowing out that beaver dam, they keep coming back, let's try this way. And so by working with the Whippoorwill Culvert and working our way up, maybe we can reach a point where water flows through, the beavers are there, and more of the trails on the Ames property are not underwater. That's our goal. I think we all have the same goals. It's just how do we achieve them? And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We have to research it. We have to. I mean, we have lots of people doing research. I have volumes on beavers. I've read books on beavers. You know, my friends say to me when we were in the beaver issue 2 years ago, "Oh my God, is that all you talk about is beavers?" So it's something that is on our agenda always, but it's still researching. So I'm thinking that this is the best solution at this point to start this process and then see how it goes up Bucky Brook, the Black Hall River, up to Jericho, up to Black Hall Pond. Because there are numerous beaver dams on our property, on private property, on land trust property. I mean, you know, here George is attacking the one on Ames, but he's applauding the one on Lay. So it's just like, well, it's a little disconnect there. So I'm just trying to say we are attempting to work this out. And we can, George is a great walker. He hikes all of our open space properties. And when the beaver deceiver goes into effect on Whippoorwill, he's going to be one of the first ones that say, Amanda didn't change the water level, or Amanda, the water's going down. So assessment. I mean, it's a process.
Yeah.
It's not,
Well, I appreciate that. I think we got to move this along. We're starting to lose everyone. I think what we should do, we're not creating any divisions. I think we have the same goals of sustainability and ecosystem management, and there's a way to do that. And I don't want this to come off like a letter from conservation, like here is a letter of things you guys should think about doing, because we appreciate that you have your research and your action plan, but I think more of thinking of it like a document of recommendation ideas from conservation and open talking points, and some of them, you know, you may not agree with at all 100%, and we can have, you know, I think having a conversation is a great way to approach this, and that's you know, just keeping the information flowing back and forth. And you know, we may not all agree within a commission or from commission to commission, but I think we have, you know, the town in our minds and what's best, and that changes from person to person. But you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing our thoughts with you guys, and don't think of it. I don't want it to go, you know, I don't know how we have to do this, but we don't need to involve Board of Selectmen, all these other commissions, if it doesn't involve them. I'm not trying to create more questions and havoc and more town involvement. People say, well, yeah, why aren't you doing this, and bandwagoning and stuff, when these are just, you know, this, you know. But maybe we table this for a month or two and see where, if we have a date with the beaver deceiver, and we can talk about some of these, because no action's going to happen in the next 2 months, whether we have input or not. So is anybody conservation wise? Amanda and Suzanne, I thank you guys for attending and calling in and filling us in from your perspective. But back to the conservation corps, if everyone's still out there and awake, what do you guys, where do you guys, do I have anyone that wants to speak up? George?
No, I mean,
George Ryan?
No, as far as I'm concerned, you could send a letter. You've already discussed it. You've already come to a happy medium. So, we're dragging this up for 6 months now. So as far as my personal feeling is, send a letter and let's be done with it.
Yeah, let's, in other words, if you can see that I've taken out a great deal of my fervor and had this massaged by two professionals. They are outstanding in their field. And the beavers are only a portion of these concerns and recommendations. So I think we should vote on it, pass it along, If they don't, if they reject it, that's their business. But we have done our obligation, which is to make a series of sound, professional recommendations. And I think we should vote on it now and get it done.
I vote
It's too
yes
old.
in favor of passing this letter around.
Yeah, hurry up
Sorry.
before the females
Right,
have
hurry.
have more babies.
Well, I'm in favor of passing the letter along. What I don't want to do is think of it as exceptions and rejections. That's my official position.
It's not.
Something we can work with, though. I vote yes in favor.
Yes.
And then it's kind of a side note is that I've been working with Gary right along. And we have, I think, got some very good ideas about picking up additional properties in town. And I am personally going to work with him to see if we can pick up two of the really prime properties. Or if the open space gang wants it, wonderful. If the land trust wants it, that's their business. So, but there's plenty of properties out there to get for open space. We're not done yet, I hope. So let's get with it.
Rock and roll.
All right, Maureen,
Okay, thank you.
do you vote yes?
Well,
That's a vote.
it's just not a vote. We agree, it's an agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're talking about voting for it for like.
Yeah, I don't think you're using the word vote. So it's an agreement. Yeah, I mean, I think it needs to be sent and just, find ways to continue the discussion if we need to. Just a statement. It's a statement of suggestions and the purpose of Conservation Commission. It fits within that. And we just have an opinion. So that's what we're offering as an opinion and some suggestions and open learning for everybody.
All right, very well.
Is that
Gary,
a yes?
let's, no, it's an agreement.
Well, it's a step to take at this point. At least take a step and we'll continue, whatever happens next.
Enough with the semantics already. If we want to send a letter, let's send it. Next subject.
All right, Gary, let's push the landing to next week. What do we got? Any updates there? The rocks are there. There's 2 parking spaces and don't go on private property. The signs are back.
Yeah, I think we put that in the
I
last.
haven't been there. I haven't been there in a week, so yeah, let's put it off to next month.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that there's more to be said because in the last meeting minutes, we made that statement, exactly what you just said, Anthony. So unless there's some action or oversight that's required, I think we can move on.
The Board of Selectmen has already made their decision, so
Right.
Okay, scratch it. Let's move.
finito. Next.
Thank you guys. Thanks everyone for calling in and hanging on. That was a long one, but I appreciate it. I hope we all
Thanks for your
came to
time.
some happy compromise in the end there.
Amanda, thanks
Well,
to you and Suzanne for attending and for participating. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for your time.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
We'll
meeting
keep you
adjourned.
in- we'll
I'll
keep
be in
you the
touch with you
loop.
guys.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, all.
Bye.
So moved.
Salud.
Now you say,